Good afternoon, girls. Today we'll start off with Unit 4 of the syllabus, which includes biodiversity and conservation. This includes levels of biological diversity, genetic, species and ecosystem diversity, biodiversity hotspots, India as a mega biodiversity nation, endangered and endemic species of India, threats to biodiversity, habitat loss, poaching of wildlife, man-wildlife conflicts. Conservation of biodiversity includes in situ and ex situ conservation of biodiversity. Ecosystem and biodiversity services include ecological, economic, social, ethical, aesthetic, and informational value. First, let us start off with levels of biological diversity, genetic, species, and ecosystem diversity. But before this, first let us know what is biodiversity. Biodiversity is that part of nature which includes the differences in genes among individuals of a species. It is the degree of nature's variety or richness in the biosphere. It is the variety of plant and animal life in the world or in a particular habitat. Now there are three types of biodiversity. Number one is genetic diversity, number two is species diversity, and number three is ecosystem diversity. So number one is genetic diversity. Here, when each member of any animal or plant species differs widely from other individuals in its genetic makeup, owing to the large number of combinations possible in the genes that give every individual its specific characteristics. It is known as genetic diversity. Example, each human being is different from each other. Genetic diversity is the total number of genetic characteristics in the genetic makeup of a species. Genetic diversity is the product of recombination of genetic material in the process of inheritance. So, when differences occur within a species, it is known as genetic diversity. Now first let us know what is species. A species is a group of organisms which can interbreed with each other. For example, Homo sapiens or human beings. One human being is different from another human being. Thus, differences in characteristics between two human beings is known as genetic diversity. Now this is due to the different combination of genes present in its chromosomes. During the formation of gametes, during cell division known as meiosis, the maternal and paternal chromosomes exchange segments so that the gametes which are formed will have a combination of genes from the mother and father. When these gametes later fertilize with another gamete to form a new individual offspring, the new offspring will inherit the combination of genes from the parents. This results in genetic diversity. Now let us go for the importance of genetic diversity. Why is genetic diversity important? Genetic variability or diversity is essential for a healthy breeding population of a species. Example, the large variation of the different gene sets allows an individual for the whole population to have the capacity to endure environmental stress in any form. In short, genetic diversity is important for adaptation of an organism in its environment. Next, number 2 is species diversity. The number of different species of plants and animals present in an ecosystem and relative abundance of each of these species constitutes species diversity. This diversity is seen both in natural ecosystems and in agricultural ecosystems. Some areas are richer in species than others. Example, natural, undisturbed tropical forests have much greater richness of species than monoculture plantations developed by the Forest Department for timber production. Diversity is greatest when all the species present are equally abundant in the area. Therefore, species diversity is dependent on species richness, which is the number of species in a given locality and its abundance. Explanation: species diversity refers to species richness and how evenly species abundance is distributed. Species richness refers to the number of different species in an area. Species abundance refers to the number of individuals per species. Thus, species diversity in an ecosystem depends on the occurrence of different species, for example, trees, and the occurrence of the quantity in number of the different species of trees. This is if we take an example of trees. Now let us look at the figure below, which consists of two communities. Community 1 has got 15 trees and community 2 also has got 15 trees. But if you look at the tree species, you can see that community 1 has got three species of trees. You can see the black, the green and the blue. There are 5 black trees, 5 green trees and 5 blue trees in community 1. Whereas in community 2, you can see that there are 10 black trees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, and there are 4 green trees and 1 blue tree. So looking at these two communities, you can say that community 1 of trees would have greater diversity due to the relative abundance of each species present. Now let us go for the next third one, ecosystem diversity. Ecosystem diversity deals with the variations in ecosystems within a geographical location and its overall impact on human existence and the environment. So, ecosystem diversity means the various types of ecosystems that we have in the world, and we have already discussed this before, so I will not be discussing this again. Next is biodiversity hotspots. Biodiversity hotspot is a biogeographic region with significant levels of biodiversity that is threatened by human habitation. Therefore, hotspot means a biogeographic region in the world with large amount of animal and plant diversity. The Earth's biodiversity is distributed in specific ecological regions, and there are over 1,000 major ecoregions in the world. Out of these, 200 are said to be the richest, rarest, and most distinctive natural areas, which is referred to as Global 200. In the world, that means in the world, Global 200 are areas with the richest and rarest varieties of plants and animals. And when a country has a large number of biodiversity hotspots, that country is known as mega diversity nation. And India is one mega diversity nation. So when we talk about India, the bio-rich regions in India include the northeast forests, western Ghats, including the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Now let us consider India as a mega diversity nation. Among the bio-rich nations, India is in the top 10 or 15 countries for its great variety of plants and animals, many of which are not found anywhere. India has 350 different mammals, rated the 8th highest in the world, 1200 species of birds, rated 8th in the world, 453 species of reptiles, rated 5th in the world, and 45,000 plant species, most of which are angiosperms, which are rated 15th in the world. These include specially high species diversity of ferns and orchids. India has 50,000 known species of insects, including 13,000 butterflies and moths. Among amphibians found in India, 62% are unique to this country. Of the 153 species of lizards recorded, 58% are endemic. High endemism has also been recorded for various groups of insects, marine worms, centipedes, and freshwater sponges. It is estimated that 18% of Indian plants are endemic to the country and found nowhere else. Gene banks have collected over 34,000 cereals and 22,000 pulses grown in India. India has 27 indigenous breeds of cattle, 40 breeds of sheep, 22 breeds of goats, and 8 breeds of buffaloes. Next, we go on to threats to biodiversity. Now, what are the threats that actually that can bring about the depletion of biodiversity? So, the threats of biodiversity are many, which include habitat loss, human-wildlife conflicts, poaching of wildlife, climate change, introduction of exotic species, overexploitation, etc. However, as this is the truncated syllabus of the university, we will be dealing only with 3: habitat loss, then the next one will be human-wildlife conflicts, and the third will be poaching of wildlife. The others maybe when times are better after the coronavirus, maybe the syllabus we will come back to the original syllabus where we will be dealing with the other parts of the syllabus. So let us consider habitat loss. Human activities are causing a loss of biological diversity among plants and animals globally. Man has started to overuse as well as misuse the resources of the natural ecosystems. Thus, the once overproductive forests and grasslands have been converted to deserts and wastelands. This has led to loss of habitats of plants and animals. Two most popular species in rich biomes are tropical forests and coral reefs, which are now under threat largely from conversion to other land uses. Thus, habitat loss is one great threat to biodiversity. Next is human-wildlife conflicts. So here, deforestation And desertation is one or the two ways in which can lead to loss in biodiversity. So number one is deforestation, and you've already studied it before. So you can see the loss of species occurs due to the loss and destruction of natural ecosystems, either for conversion to agriculture or industry, or by over-extraction of their resources, or through pollution of air, water and soil. Our natural forests are being deforested for timber and replanted using teak, sal or other single species for the timber value. Such monoculture plantations destroys the biodiversity of the forests. The next one is desertification. Desertification and deforestation are the main causes of biodiversity loss. Both processes are decisively influenced by the extension of agriculture. So the direct cause of deforestation is reflected in the loss of valuable plants and animal species, and desertification process is the result of poor land management, which can be aggravated by climatic variations. Converting wild lands to agriculture often involves plowing the soil, which leads in temperate regions to an average decline in soil organic matter between 25 and 40% over 25 years. Further, exposure of such lands to wind and water erosion finally leads to desertification and biodiversity loss. In the marine environment, in coastal areas where human activities are concentrated, pollution, overexploitation of resources, development of critical habitats such as wetlands and mangroves, and water flow from poor land use practices have led to drastic reductions in near-shore fisheries, production, and aquatic biodiversity. Next, poaching of wildlife and increasing wildlife trade will also lead to loss of biodiversity. Here, hunting of wildlife and its trade is another cause of biodiversity depletion. Global trade in wildlife is estimated to be over $20 million annually. The skin and bones of tigers, ivory of elephants, horns of rhinos, and perfume of the musk deer are extensively used abroad. Bears are killed for their gallbladders. Corals and shells are also collected for export. Tortoises and exotic birds and other small animals are smuggled abroad for pet trade. A variety of wild plants with medicinal values are being over-harvested. The common collected plants include Rauwolfia, Datura, species orchids, ferns, mosses, etc. All these are threat to biodiversity and it leads to loss of biodiversity. So I will continue with this class in the next class next week.